Good morning. This is Dr. Shalu Sachdeva and we will be continuing with our topic bioinorganic chemistry. In bioinorganic chemistry, we are basically studying the role of metal ions and their action inside the biological system. One of the most important role of metal ion in the biological system is to maintain the osmotic pressure of the body, and for that we need ion pumps. All enzymes are very selective in their activities. For the working of any ion pump, enzymes are needed inside the body. An example of such enzyme and specific and selective in its activity is the ATPase enzyme. This enzyme is involved in catalyzing the hydrolysis of ATP, which provides energy for sodium-potassium pump to work to maintain the osmotic pressure of the body. Now, how do we understand the working of the sodium-potassium pump? The ions sodium and potassium are very essential for the working of the body, and the basic requirement for the working is: number one, the concentration of sodium ions inside the cell should be less than outside, and the gradient for potassium ions should be the reverse. That is, the concentration of sodium ions inside the cell should be less than that of potassium ions. And this is a case of disequilibrium. Why do we say disequilibrium? Because it is against the natural tendency of ions to diffuse from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. Then it remains as less inside the cell. The concentration of sodium ions, which is greater outside, does not rush inside the cell. This concentration gradient is maintained by providing energy to the system, and this energy is provided by the hydrolysis of ATP. ATP, we all know, is the energy rich molecule. The enzyme ATPase is very important since it catalyzes the hydrolysis of ATP, and as we have already mentioned that the hydrolysis of ATP is providing energy to maintain the disequilibrium of sodium and potassium ions. The enzyme catalyzes the hydrolysis of ATP in the presence of sodium, potassium and magnesium ions. That means all the three ions are needed for the hydrolysis of ATP. ATPase, which is the enzyme, requires sodium ions when it is getting phosphorylated, that is, the formation of the enzyme phosphate bond, and it requires potassium ions when it is getting dephosphorylated. In the working of the sodium potassium pump, there is a formation of phosphate bond with the enzyme, and there is a formation of the dephosphorylated bond with the enzyme. This, as you can see, is the diagram which represents the sodium potassium pump. Now, in a particular configuration, as we term as the configuration as E1, where the enzyme is facing inside the cell, when the enzyme is facing inside the cell, it picks up sodium ions from inside the cell, since the sodium ion concentration inside the cell should be less. After that, for this, ATP is providing energy. After that, phosphorylation occurs where ATP molecule gets attached to the enzyme. The next step in the cycle undergoes as the eversion of the enzyme. Eversion means the configuration of the enzyme changes. That is, from E1, when the enzyme was facing inside the cell, the configuration changes to E2, where the enzyme now faces outside the cell. Now, outside the cell, the concentration of sodium ion needs to be higher. So, the enzyme which had picked up, the ATPase enzyme which had picked up sodium ions from inside the cell, throws those sodium ions outside the cell and picks up potassium ions from outside the cell and throws them inside the cell. As a result of this, the concentration of potassium ions inside the cell becomes greater. The next step is dephosphorylation, wherein the ATP molecule detaches from the enzyme and releases a lot of energy. And in the next step, again the inversion of the enzyme takes place and it reaches its original configuration, ready for the next cycle. As the explanation goes, in step 1, inside the cell, 3 sodium ions bind to the enzyme through the formation of the enzyme phosphate bond, and this step is called phosphorylation, which is step 1. In the second step, there is inversion or change in the conformation of the enzyme which takes place. Step 3 includes the release of 3 sodium ions which takes place outside the cell, and 2 potassium ions bind from outside the cell to the enzyme. Step 4 is the dephosphorylation of the enzyme and hydrolysis of ATP, which occurs and ADP is formed. That is, one phosphate unit is released and adenosine triphosphate changes to adenosine diphosphate, and a lot of energy is released during this step. Step 5 is the inversion of the enzyme, and 2 potassium ions are brought inside the cell, wherein they are released and the enzyme is set free and the process starts again. Before we move on to the next explanation, we need to know that why is there is an exchange of 3 sodium ions and 2 potassium ions in this whole process. Since potassium ions are slightly larger in size as compared to sodium ions, therefore there is an exchange of 3 sodium ions for 2 potassium ions in this whole cycle. Next we come to the poisoning of the enzyme. The most important criteria in the working of any enzyme in the biological system is the fact that bonds should be formed easily and broken whenever required. The phosphorylation of ATPase is the formation of the enzyme phosphate bond, and dephosphorylation is the breaking of the ATPase phosphate bond, which is necessary for the working of the sodium potassium pump. Phosphorylation and dephosphorylation, these two are accompanying processes. That means in one case bond formation is taking place, and in the second case bond breaking is taking place. These two processes have to go hand in hand, otherwise the cycle will not proceed. However, if very small concentration of any other ion which is resembling the phosphate ion, for example vanadate and phosphate, which has vanadium and phosphorus respectively, are almost of the similar size and similar configuration, enter the system and get bound in the same way as phosphate, but the 5 coordinate complex formed during hydrolysis does not break and the enzyme gets poisoned. As we have spoken about phosphorylation and dephosphorylation, the enzyme phosphate bond first forms and then breaks, but if there is a very small amount of vanadate ion in the system entering by any ways, then in that case the enzyme will form a very strong bond with vanadate ions, which will not break however amount of energy being supplied to the system. And once the enzyme phosphate bond breaks, whereas the enzyme vanadate bond does not break, the enzyme is said to be poisoned because the further reaction is interfered or stopped. Hence, this interferes with the dephosphorylation step. that follows. Once we have discussed about the poisoning of the enzyme in case where bond making has been performed but bond breaking does not occur, we now come to the selectivity of the process. The sodium potassium pump is highly selective, and it is very selective in two ways. Number one, the enzyme binds to sodium ions and potassium ions in its specific conformations. That is, the enzyme binds to sodium ions in E1 conformation when it is facing inside the cell, because it has to pick up sodium ions from inside the cell and it has to throw them outside the cell, whereas it combines with potassium ions outside the cell, that is in the E2 conformation, because it has to pick up potassium ions from outside the cell and has to throw them inside the cell. And the second point which defines the selectivity of the process is the enzyme, which is a macromolecular species, is folded in such a way that it develops many channels in it. The enzyme, we mean ATPase. ATPase, which is providing energy to the whole system, it is a macromolecular species and it is always present in a folded state. Once a huge enzyme, a macromolecular species, is folded, it can develop many channels in it. These channels accept the cations in them according to their properties. For example, sodium ions are accepted in hydrated channels, whereas potassium ions are accepted in comparatively bare channels. Now, what do we understand by hydrated channels and bare channels? When the enzyme ATPase has been folded, it is kept folded in its particular vicinity, then it develops certain channels, certain columns in it. Some of these columns or channels are hydrated channels which contain water molecules, and some of them are bare channels because they are dehydrated channels. Hydrated channels which contain water molecules, they accept sodium ions inside them because sodium ions have comparatively smaller size as compared to potassium ions, and the dehydrated channels or the bare channels accept potassium ions which have a comparatively larger size, and as we have already mentioned in the slide, it's because of the size difference of the two cations. With that, we have explained the chemistry of ion pumps, their working, and why is their working essential for the maintenance of osmotic pressure, or so to say the blood pressure of the biological system. Next, we move on to another important ion, which is calcium. Calcium, as we know, is very essential for the living system, for the biological system, because calcium has a variety of roles to play. So, now we understand the biochemistry of calcium. Calcium ions has a variety of roles to play in the biological system. The roles played by calcium are well defined and cannot be performed by any other metal ion. Even for example, magnesium. Magnesium and calcium almost have the similar size and charge, but whatever roles have been assigned for calcium inside the biological system are being performed only by calcium. Magnesium cannot take over these roles. This is because of the reason that calcium does not have a tendency to form strong complexes, whereas magnesium has a tendency to form strong complexes. Calcium belongs to alkali metals group, magnesium belongs to alkaline earth metals group, that is group 2 in the periodic property. So, calcium behaves in the manner it is behaving due to the property which is typical of alkali metals. Alkali metals do not have a strong tendency to form strong complexes because of the fact that they have larger sizes, whereas magnesium, which is an alkaline earth metal, has a tendency to form strong complexes. That is, if magnesium performs the role which calcium performs, then in that case magnesium will definitely form bonds just like calcium does, but once it forms a bond, the bond formation will be so strong that it will not break whenever it's required. But the role of calcium requires bond making as well as bond breaking. The roles defined for calcium, like as in blood clotting, to give an example, require quick making and breaking of complexes as they are all reversible processes. Magnesium is much slower in its reactions than calcium, and as I have already mentioned that it first forms a bond, but the breaking of bond is much slower. Coming to the roles played by calcium in the body. Calcium performs a number of roles or a number of functions in the body. The first one being a structural role. Calcium is involved in the basic framework of the body, because in the inorganic form it is present in the bones, teeth and shells. Inorganic form meaning in the form of generally calcium phosphate and a number of other inorganic forms. Another role of calcium is in muscle contraction. It helps in muscle contraction and relaxation. Calcium is also important in the triggering of nerve impulses. It also plays a very important role in making the protein structures rigid by tying up residues of portions of peptide chains, and also it has a very important role in blood clotting, as in case of fibrinogen and fibrin. One function which we have discussed of calcium is that it helps in making the protein structures rigid. Now, how does that happen? How does calcium help to make protein structures rigid? Calcium has a special affinity for oxygen atoms of aspartate and glutamate groups in the side chain of proteins. So, in the proteins it goes and attaches with the oxygen atoms of aspartic acid and glutamic acid. It also has an affinity for nitrogen ligands. It can adopt higher coordination numbers and irregular geometries easily. As you can see in the figure, calcium can adopt irregular geometries very easily. Now, how does calcium help in making protein structures rigid? The continuation, another point is that a distorted tetrahedral geometry has been identified where calcium coordinates with 4 carboxylate groups from aspartate residues. This helps in keeping one helical structure or one helical position rigid with respect to other cross section of the protein. So, if we imagine a helical structure just like in case of DNA, then one of these helical structures is kept rigid, immovable on combination with calcium, and as a result of this, since the calcium helps to make the protein structures rigid by keeping one helical position rigid, so it gives structural framework or a structural rigidity to the whole biological system. Crown ethers also have an important role to play in the biological system, and metallo-crown ethers are serving as potential drug delivery agents. Crown ethers, they exhibit biological action when a metal ion is present in their cavity. As you can see in the figure, crown ether, a 6-membered crown ether with a metal ion in the center, this becomes biologically active crown ether. In a 6-membered crown ether, potassium ion, for example, can fit exactly into the hole of the crown ether. The M which is there in the figure is seen to be as potassium ions, and hence increases the permeability of the cell membrane. Once this crown ether's permeability towards the cell membrane is increased, any drug can be associated with the crown ether and can be injected into the system, because then it will behave as a drug delivery agent, since it will pass easily through the cell membrane and proceed in its action. Thank you so much.